Last video we updated our car and we upgraded some parts to ensure that we can get the fastest lap and generate the extra revenue. This race we can see that Calc has qualified on pole position and we're second place. And surprisingly he was able to get pole position despite doing a one pit stop strategy and starting with a high fuel load. Last video we also changed our weight compensation so we don't artificially make our car slow at the start of the race to try and not lose time overtaking others at the start. Like now we can see we're behind others trying to overtake. In this race it was actually a close finish. We were only 17 seconds quicker than Calc has. And we didn't have the tires and the weight compensation chose correctly, then we potentially would not have beaten Calc, because the weight compensation you can lose easily 5 to 60 seconds a race. Surprisingly, Ethan got his strategy wrong and he pit at lap 64. I think he was trying to do a no pit stop strategy but he failed horribly. And he was basically out of contention because the high fuel load and the sub-optimal strategy meant he didn't gain any time doing his strategy. Another interesting thing in the race is that we can see someone called Thomas Gulita 2009 and he was able to get a number in his name. We can see that our upgrade for the suspension definitely paid off because Ethan is 70 milliseconds slower than us, and we didn't have the upgrade, no way we will be able to get the fastest lap. And you can see our lap time compared to our teammates also much quicker. And we can see our overall finish is top 87 out of everyone in the same cars. You can also see our pit time is very good, 20.3, considering some are doing 21.5 seconds, and we only have a level 5 for the pit stop training. And if we look at the race results, surprisingly our driver drained all the stamina again, even with the lower risk. And we made a driver mistake at lap 40, and I checked the replay. The driver made the mistake during our overtaking event, and we also increased our overtaking risk by 5 points this race to try and see how much we can push it. While we made our driver do the boost lap at lap 49, we only did a 5.1, and surprisingly near the end of the race we did a 5 minute flat, and it wasn't a boost lap. We actually made another lap, 5.083, very similar to the best lap we had near the end of the race. And we can see probably during the actual boost lap, because the temperature is a bit lower at 6 degrees and we tuned our car to the average temperature, which is 8, that's why we were 0.14 seconds slower. And we know that the higher the temperature, the quicker the lap time, and if we try to decrease the temperature compensation a bit more, then we'll go a bit more undercompensated, and then we'll probably get an even better lap time. I copied the race result into our calculator tool, and I already had a look at the lap times. and our lap time at the end of the race was a bit quicker because our weight compensation is still a bit high. At the start of the race, during the first few laps, we were about 1.5 seconds slower compared to other parts of the race, and I came to the conclusion that I want to reduce both the temperature and the weight compensation by another 15%. And the tire wear during the race was a bit lower. We anticipated to have 16% tires left, but the actual tires were 26%, and there was a difference of 11% in the tire wear. You can also see our average wear was exactly the same as the calculator. And last race, our drain per wrist was 2.7, this race was 2.4. So for the race coming up, we can choose a more appropriate wear, about 2.6 or so, and that will give us a bit more performance. This race that we're going to do is difficult to overtake. And the previous race result shows it's a 1 or 2 pit stop race. You can see that there is going to be a rain start, and potentially it's just going to be dry at the end of the race. When we look at a calculator, I calculated the average to fit with a 1 pit stop, so we can do 2 pit stops for the race. It will be good, potentially 3. Because sometimes for the 1 pit stop races, in reality the 2 pit stops work equally as well, and sometimes you can get away with even more pit stops. So if we do the extra pit stops, then we are going to lose less time if the weather changes a lot, and we have the redundancy to be prepared if the weather suddenly changes and not lose that much time. For the race that we just did, we can see that I actually had the fastest car during the race, and just behind us was Fiorano. Surprisingly, Tsuka's car is top 10, but he was very quick in the race and he has a very heavy driver. You can see his driver is 80 kilograms and he hasn't changed his driver at all. But for last video, when I was recording, we looked at our car performance and it was actually top 2, not the fastest. You can see our qualifying time in Q1 was 0.5 seconds slower. Potentially our car's roll pace is ever so slightly less than Tsuka's or the same. And then in Q2, only 0.1 seconds slower than Tsuka's, but we are using a lower fuel load, so I'm not sure how he's able to get such a good qualifying time and very little increase in lap time for doing a 1 pit stop. And we qualified top 280 out of 2,600. We're going to look at the sponsors negotiation, and shockingly, this sponsor, who is easy to negotiate with, 2 bars less than maximum, but they pulled out of negotiations. In last video we showed that we didn't choose a decision that's ridiculous, we chose like a middle one, but they pulled out. And our sponsor is ready because we previously had a sponsor, so we couldn't accept the contract, but now we can. Out of the available sponsors, this time I looked for someone who is actually maxed in the negotiation to ensure we don't lose a sponsor midway and lose available time. We can see at this part of the season, there are only two managers with a sponsor that's ready. The second one is current, but the duration is quite low. We want to have this very high duration because it takes a long time to get a sponsor, and you would not be able to fill up every single spot for the sponsor list and you lose money. That's why it's good to have a lot of races for this contract. You can see from the video that we just did, we chose this mid-table position, which is like a neutral one, to ensure that they don't pull out of communication. But surprisingly, even with this easy to negotiate sponsor, for some reason they just pulled out. We're going to update our car, and we can see that there's quite a few parts that we can downgrade. We can downgrade the engine and the chassis, and we will make it to the end. But for the other parts, you couldn't be able to make it even with the lowest level. So we're going to do that and update the car. Now we can see that our car is quite balanced after the update, because we're able to get a higher level in the handling and the acceleration parts. While we may want to save some money not training our driver as much, it might actually allow us to use even lower level parts in our car and still have the same performance, and it will generate us that extra revenue. So we might want to train for a few more races. Now we're gonna do the fitness again to reduce the weight, because we know we gain about 5 to 10 seconds in a race for every kilogram. We're going to copy the car weight values into our calculator tool. And we adjusted our wear and temperature compensation values by 15%. You can see also that our staff, the cost has gone down a bit. At the start of the race it was 220 and 230k or so, and our staff skills dropped throughout the season, but it's not really any concern because we're not testing much or doing pit stop, and we already have a very good pit stop crew. What I'm looking at for this race is that potentially we are going to do 30 minutes of wet, and then sometimes it doesn't become dry instantly, and they'll take about another 10 minutes or so to dry up, and then we can choose the remaining to be 2 stops, and that would be potentially an okay strategy. Though it's potentially unlikely to rain again, there's still some small chance at the middle of the race, so we'll use the lower free road. We have more redundancy. When we look at the average temperature of the race, T2 and T3 is very similar, so if we choose in between T2 T3, it will be optimum. We don't want to do 1 to 3 because of the wider range we'll lose time, because you can only gain time with a narrow setup, because there's going to be some wet laps. Normally this wouldn't be enough weight to make it, but we don't need to do the full race laps in the dry, so it should be good. And we'll apply the offset for the wear to get the actual wear during the race. And we entered the fuel required, and we know the wet lap time will be about 34 seconds a lap. And if we look at the 30-minute mark, it will be about 19 laps. If we look at some of the past results that we recorded, we know that the rain is 90 to 99 in this race, 90 to 95, and for the Bucharest ring, every single lap was wet. And for a different track with a 75 to 85 rain chance, the 85 all laps were wet, and it was only 5 dry laps for the 75. So we can safely assume that it will rain for the entire 30 minutes. And we can assume that take 1 lap off the 30-minute mark and it will be 18 laps. And we subtract 18 laps, you have 32 laps remaining. And we do a 2 pit stop strategy near the end. We would need to do 19, 18, 70 laps to have 2 extra laps than the total. But because the start of the race, we are not entirely sure or when it's exactly going to stop raining, we want to be a bit more conservative and add a few extra laps. And if we do a 19, 19, 18, we'll have 4 extra laps. And the 30-minute mark is actually 19 laps. So in total we have 5 extra laps and it should be good enough. We're gonna find the setup for the race. We found the setup and we're going to find the wing split. You can see the optimum wing split is somewhere between the 8 and 7 lap. So we're going to choose this wing split, minus 10 points to take a bit closer to this one. The 8th lap we added minus 50 and we got that lap time. Our driver is 0.6 seconds slower than the net time. We use this 1.75, 7% more for the compensation from dry to wet, but we don't exactly know if it's good or not. But what I want to try is do a 0.95. Then we can use the Q1 versus the Q2 qualifying times to look at how good this compensation value is. From previous races, we found out that it can rain up to 13 minutes after it turned dry. So we need to set our first stint to contain 27 laps worth of fuel in the wet. And that will correspond to a 63 liter of fuel to be able to do the first 30 minutes plus another 13 minute for it to become dry. You can see our Q2 lap time is ridiculously fast. In Q1 we were 1 second slower than Marges and 0.7 slower than Clint, and our driver mistake is about 0.3 seconds more than his normal form in Q1, and we're 1 second and 3 seconds quicker than others who have qualified. So that definitely means the 0.95 we use for the dry to wet conversion is good, because the compensation values, you can't find the exact value, so that's why we chose the 5% less, so we undercompensate, so we don't lose time for not being able to have the exact conversion value. And we can see Q1 not so good, top 3 70, and Q2 we have a ridiculous qualifying time of top 34, and we are 1 second slower than the top rivals. And we entered the setup values for the race, and we can see the 4.5 degrees temperature difference causes a large change in the setup values, and we already seen that for the temperature we gained a little bit of time when the track became a bit hotter, but if it's the correct compensation value we actually gain even a bit more time, and we reduce the wear a bit more to try and do a undercompensation to not lose time from not having the exact coefficients. A lot of the setup values changed by about 20 points, even with a slightly undercompensated value for a change in 4.5 degrees. And we set our driver to pit instantly if the weather changes, to make sure that we have enough stamina in the race. We're going to use a risk of 2.4, and that will correspond to having 35 risk. But last race we ran out of stamina, and the only time we actually was able to see the full stamina drain was this other race in Cannes, 2.71. So we should just use the 2.71 because our current risk is 35, and this is also 35, so there's no change, and that means we drop the risk to 31. And because some of the car part weighs are a bit high, 97, we definitely need the lower risk to make sure it doesn't blow up. Because our driver made a mistake during overtake last race, we're going to reduce that risk by 5 and increase the defend risk by 5 because it didn't make a mistake in defending. And we entered the risk values, and we're going to make our driver do the boost lap after the first pit stop near the end of it, so the lap 31. We entered the fuel values. If we look at our season standings, you have a huge point lead of 28 points, so we can definitely do eco and save money, so we have a better standing when we promote into the next class.